I want to thank you for taking the time to check out my videos. I'm always looking for new topics, so if you have any to share or any comments, please leave them down below. At some point, you're going to see a segment of our society slide into this, what I call, comparative analysis or whataboutisms. And those are dangerous if you engage in them. Now, you may not think it is, but let me just kind of give you a few reasons why you got to be careful when you go down that path. Because first of all, the reality is every group is different. As a person of African descent, I am not going to try to put my ancestors' experience in the same categories of those of Mexican descent who were displaced as a result of the Louisiana Purchase and everything that flowed from that. I'm not going to put myself in the same category as the Choctaw, Navajo, Apache, Cheyenne, Blackfoot, Cherokee. I'm not going to put myself in the name of any of those tribes members whose tribes were decimated as a result of colonization. I'm not going to put myself in the same category of the Jewish whose family members were directly affected by the Holocaust, or Japanese Americans whose families were directly impacted by the internment camps. Everyone's cultural tragedy is unique for that particular culture. And when you start getting into this thing of saying, well, what about this, what about that? You're trying to put them all on equal playing field when really it's not about that. Everybody's unique cultural ancestral tragedy or trauma is uniquely different, and you need to look at them in that light as opposed to looking at trying to compare them to others. And this is not trying to be nasty, because sometimes when I hear this, my first thing is to scream, it's not a competition. When people say, well, what about this group? Well, what about this group? I said, this is not a competition. There's no award being given out for, most tragic story. Everyone's story has a unique aspect of tragedy to it. And it should not be minimized in any way, shape, or form. But sometimes there's this natural inclination in an effort to try to, under the guise of saying context, say, well, what about it? Stop doing that, because it's not a competition to see who's most tragic. And this is the thing that even makes it even worse. Because the people who do it don't realize this. And this is going to sound harsh, but listen to me. You're talking down to people when you do that. And you're saying, well, how do you say? Because some people will do this and they think they're being forward thinking. They think they're giving contextual discussions. No, you're not. You think you are, but you're not. Let me just go ahead and tell you that now. Because what you're doing is you're trying to minimize a particular situation, because a lot of times what ends up happening is that by doing that, it devolves into, I didn't say evolves, I said devolves into asking why certain segments did well under certain circumstances, but this group did not. It almost gives the implication, well, there's something wrong with you because they were able to figure it out. Why weren't you able to figure it out? Don't do that. And you don't think you are. And a lot of times when I see people do it, they don't think they're doing it. Well, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to put in context. No, you're not. Because it's almost as if I sit there and I try to compare parents to how they raise their children. I shouldn't care about how that parent raises that child. That's why I love the old adage of, if your friends jump off a bridge, will you jump off a bridge? No. So why are you trying to compare? I don't care about them. I care about you. Same thing. When you're trying to address the atrocities to a particular group, the moment you start saying, well, what about that one? I'll be like, it's the same argument. Well, if everybody jumped off a roof, would you follow it? No. In other words, stop trying to pull in everybody else in order to make this particular situation look not as relevant. You think you're helping, but you're not. Which is why it's important to understand that when you start going down that pathway of comparing to others, you start getting into this dangerous trap of the why can't you? Well, why can't you? Because a lot of times what happens is that we want to say, this is the crazy situation. They were able to do this. Why can't you do what they did? And that's when it goes completely off the rails. At that particular point, you no longer are interested in doing what you can to help the group that is bringing these atrocities to your attention. You stop focusing on their plight and you start focusing on what the other group did that your group did not do. And then what ends up happening is whether you want to acknowledge this, and this is going to sound harsh, so don't take this the wrong way, you're re-victimizing the group again. You may not think you are, but you're re-victimizing the group again. Because what you're doing is you're trying to politely tell them, under the guise of being forward thinking And I know people are like, you're being condescending. Yes, I'm being very condescending, because this happens a lot, where there's this natural inclination to try to, one, pull in some comparison. Say, oh, you're saying this? Well, guess what? This is what happened. Well, yeah, this is what happens. And then all of a sudden they go from, this is what happens, this is what they did, then why can't you do that? And then what happens is, as a result, the whole discussion, which was meant to focus on the one particular group, totally got lost in translation. It just went slowly but surely downhill. So when you're sitting there having the discussion, and listen, I am a person who believes in the power of education. I want you to be informed. I want you to be informed. What I don't want you to do is to operate under this guise that by throwing out other information to try to spearhead or participate in your discussion, that you're thinking you're being forward thinking. If you truly are committed to being forward thinking, commit yourself to focusing on the plight and the tragedy of that specific group, educate yourself to all aspects of it, then look for meaningful contributions uniquely for that group. And remember, it's all about that group.